Is this desperation from the president? He needed a deal, didn't he?
He certainly did need to change the channel. The economy contracted in the first quarter after 3 years of growth. The markets were reacting badly. So this does change the channel for him domestically, and he knows how to sell a deal, which we all saw from the Oval Office earlier today.
And he sold a deal. Has he oversold it?
Well, I don't know if there's anything that the president doesn't oversell. That's just sort of his MO. But I do think it's helpful to look a little bit at the larger picture, which is this really places the UK, in my view, in the driver's seat in terms of setting a standard for what other countries are going to want to achieve. And if the other members of Europe cannot collectively force the EU to come to an arrangement similar to the UK's, there's going to be a lot of domestic pressure on their governments to cut separate deals. And conversely, if they are going to delay coming to that realization, it's going to make the UK much more attractive for foreign direct investment. So I can see this having knock-on effects that will benefit the UK down the road. But again, it really does highlight the difference between the UK being independent and being able to act that way, and the EU, which now has a collective decision-making, and how slow and deliberate that is.
Yes, and isn't the slight risk for the UK that because the EU is such a larger market than the UK, there is going to be, if the UK has set the benchmark at this level, the EU might well be thinking, well, hang on, we can do better than that because we're a much larger market and the Americans will realise that one day.
Well, that may be the case, but it's going to be that one day, which, given how slowly these deliberations take, could be many, many years. After all, as we heard from President Obama, he was unable to get a trade agreement with the EU, despite his wanting to do so. So there's no guarantee that it will ever materialize. But in the meantime, the UK can move forward. And again, the larger issue is the strategic relationship between the UK and the US, what this means across the board for military sharing, for intel sharing, for all the sorts of things that the two countries have done in the past, and quite frankly have been a little bit friction for the past 3-4 months. So I think this augurs well for the US and the UK moving forward together.
Good to speak to you. Thank you for coming on. Mitchell B. Reiss, diplomat who has worked for 5 US administrations, including at the White House and State Department. 5:12. Let's come to your calls. Matthew's in Heathrow. Hi, Matthew.
No, it's meant to be this. Look.
Matthew.
No.
Yes, you're on. Matthew.
Oh, hi.
Yes,
Tom.
I know. Yes, you're on.
Yeah, what it is, I think basically we shouldn't break out the champagne yet because we've got to see what deal the EU gets with Europe, because with the US, because they're a bigger market. So I think that's why they've done the deal with us first, and now the EU is going to be fighting for a better deal, and we're going to lose out.
Well, I think it's hard. That's only if we lose out. It's pretty hard to argue that this is a bad thing, particularly if you work in the car sector in this country, to have those tariffs reduced from 27.5% down to 10% for 100,000 cars a year. That's clearly not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it is good, but we got to, we mustn't celebrate, because I think, unfortunately, it's going to prove Brexit is not a success because of, what deal then the EU is going to get.
I think, Matthew, this is, in a sense, this isn't about Brexit. This is a deal that we have had to come to in order to sort of get back near to where we were before the tariffs were applied. But to be fair, were it not for Brexit, we'd have had to do all this through the EU, which possibly may have been even more complicated and difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Let's see what the EU gets, and then we could break out the champagne.
Do you think this vindicates Keir Starmer's strategy of what's a nice way of being diplomatic around Donald Trump, let's say?
Yeah, no, there's definitely, the way he's played the cards is that, we've we've done it on a friendly basis, and that's the way the negotiations should be done, and, not, walking out of the room, as he was saying, and everything.